So a really good YouTuber by the name of Shaun made a really good response video to roaming millennials. People of color, you are not oppressed video. The video was excellent. It had great points all throughout the video. I really recommend you guys watch the full video. I definitely did. And he makes a ton of good points here. But the main point that I wanted to focus this video on is his point and kind of how he explains it, because there's a constant talking point that, you know, as a minority, Asians were able to rise up and do better with median household income and scores than white people are. So black people should be able to rise up as well. And, you know, they faced oppression, but they were able to do it. Really what it is, and you're going to see this because he's going to explain it to you, what it is they basically banned immigration from China to America. So literally they banned Chinese people from entering the country. So basically you ban the people from entering, then and you have like a little fixed population. Then what you do is you open it back up, and then what happens is you're going to have a bunch of people who are able to come who will come because they're able to. So as he goes on to explain here, the people who are going to come are people who are already financially stable, and they'll be able to come. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going to say, you know, but Mexican immigrants are poor. They're coming. When they come over, they're poor and things like that. We don't share a border or a piece of land with China, so you have to do a lot and pay a lot of money to really move from China to the U.S. So check out how Shaun breaks this down.
Asian American argument.
And something that I'd like to mention, which really debunks the idea that non-white people in the US are oppressed, is the fact that there are non-white groups out there who on average do better than their white counterparts in terms of education and finances. And yes, felony charges too.
So then, people of colour can't be oppressed because Asian Americans on average are better educated and have a higher average income than white Americans. Now, does this therefore prove that oppression is now a thing of the past and has no bearing at all on modern society? Well, I would argue quite the opposite. In fact, a larger percentage of Asian Americans being educated and having a higher average income stems directly from discrimination against Asian people. And stick with me now, it's kind of a counterintuitive one, this, I understand. You know, how can discrimination against a group lead to them being, on average, better off down the line? And another question here before I answer that one. In the graph of average household incomes that Roaming Millennial showed, why doesn't the Asian data go back as far as the others? And these answers are linked, as you'll see. So I'm going to throw a few data points your way now, and we'll see if we can later draw some conclusions from them. So first of all, in 1960, the Asian population of the United States was less than 1 million. They comprised around half of 1% of the population. And this is compared to there being over 18 million black people in 1960, to give you a sense of the scale there. Today, there are around 20 million Asian Americans, so why were there so few, relatively, in 1960, and why are there comparatively so many more today? Point number 2. In 1882, the United States Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, prohibiting Chinese immigration into the United States and making the Chinese migrants present in the United States at the time permanent aliens by excluding them from the possibility of US citizenship. Point number 3. The Immigration Act of 1917, also known as the Asiatic Barred Zone Act, barred immigration from large parts of Asia completely. Point number 4. The Immigration Act of 1924, including the Asian Exclusion Act, but not to be confused with the Chinese Exclusion Act, imposed strict quotas on how many people of a particular nationality could be resident in the United States at the time, and barred completely everyone who was ineligible to become a United States citizen. Fifth, and finally here, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which removed the racial and national barriers that were previously in place, which restricted immigration from Asia. So then, why in 1960 were there a relatively small number of Asian people in the United States? And that's because immigration from Asia was massively restricted by a series of discriminatory laws. And then after those restrictions were lifted, immigration from Asia skyrocketed, relatively anyway. Now, the vast majority of Asian American population growth in recent decades has been due to immigration. So then we need to ask, who can move to a different country? And primarily of importance to us here is people who can afford to move to a different country. And this is particularly true of a country very far away with which you do not share a land border. You know, the average Chinese labourer cannot say, oh, I'm not feeling this really, I think I'll just move to America and buy a house and go to college. You know, you see my point here.
He did a truly remarkable job here, and I really do commend him for that. Basically, he breaks it down. You ban immigration, what it is, and then you have all of the people there of that specific, people, Asian people, and you had the obviously the acts that banned people completely from China, and another one that banned a lot of people, or banned people from many parts of Asia. And what you do is you take that population, some are doing well, a lot of them are poor. And then what you do is you open up the immigration and you allow people to come in. Now, what's going to happen to the average, intelligence score and the average median household income if you're going to take that population of basically poor people, and which is a vast majority poor people, and then you're just going to influx, flood in, because people who immigrate to America who are Asian are, like he explained there, are going to be financially stable, so they'll have a higher household median income. So really what didn't happen is a growth of the Asian population within the United States. What it is an influx that boosted their median income and their scores, because the scores are obviously going to be better for people who are in better financial positions. Anyone who's not stupid knows that. So he did a really great job breaking down this point, and he goes on to, he explains a lot of different great points. One of the other really good points that I saw was he was like, she admits that there was basically oppression ever since from the Declaration of Independence all the way up to the 1965 Voting Rights Act, in which there were Jim Crow laws and shit like that going on. So you have slavery and then Jim Crow. And then the idea that somehow you're looking at like 60 years, all of those hundreds of years of slavery and Jim Crow and institutionalized racism and oppression is going to go away, and there's not even going to be any effects whatsoever. He goes on to point out that whites and blacks use drugs at the same rate, but black people are far more, they are arrested far more for drug possession, marijuana possession, and many other things. They get harsher sentences. Multiple studies show that. So again, I recommend you watch the whole video. He did a really remarkable job here. Support independent progressive media by leaving a subscription down below. Leave a like and share the video. Help us out on Patreon, or you can donate in other ways. Links are in the description down below. We are fighting Trump tooth and nail, and we will continue to do so with your help.